Eric Jordan first noticed Natalie Washington during their senior year at the University of Michigan. She sat 3 rows ahead of him in their business ethics class, and he couldn't help but admire the way she always had thoughtful questions for the professor. Her hand would shoot up with confidence, and her voice carried clearly through the lecture hall. Eric had never been so bold. He preferred to sit quietly, take notes, and slip out when class ended. On a rainy Tuesday in October, Eric forgot his umbrella. He stood under the building's overhang watching sheets of water pour from the sky when Natalie appeared beside him. "Looks like we're both stuck," she said with a smile. "I'm Natalie, by the way. We have ethics together." "I know," Eric replied, then felt his cheeks warm. "I mean, I've seen you in class. I'm Eric." "Well, Eric, I live in the North Campus apartments. Where are you headed?" "Same direction, actually. East Quad." Natalie's smile widened. "Perfect. My umbrella is big enough for 2 if you don't mind sharing." That walk across campus changed everything for Eric. They talked about classes, professors, and their plans after graduation. Eric wanted to go into business management, while Natalie was double majoring in business and computer science. By the time they reached his dorm, the rain had stopped, but their conversation hadn't. "Would you maybe want to grab coffee sometime?" Eric asked, surprising himself with his boldness. "I'd like that," Natalie said. "How about tomorrow after ethics?" Their coffee date turned into dinner later that week. Dinner led to a movie the following weekend. Soon, they were spending most of their free time together. Eric loved how smart Natalie was. She could solve problems in ways he never considered. When he struggled with his finance class, she helped him understand the concepts by relating them to real-world examples. When he was nervous about a big presentation, she practiced with him until he felt confident. "You're going to do great things. One day," Natalie told him often. "You just need to believe in yourself the way I believe in you." Their relationship grew stronger as graduation approached. They met each other's families during holiday breaks. Eric's parents were polite to Natalie, but he noticed how his mother would sometimes ask odd questions about Natalie's hair or family background. His father would change the subject whenever Natalie mentioned her plans to work in tech. "They're just old-fashioned," Eric explained when Natalie brought it up. "They'll warm up to you eventually." Natalie's family, on the other hand, welcomed Eric with open arms. Her mother always sent him home with containers of homemade food. Her father invited Eric to watch sports and asked about his career goals. Her younger brother looked up to Eric and asked for advice about college applications. "Your family is amazing," Eric told Natalie after one weekend visit. "They make me feel like I belong." "Because you do belong," Natalie said, squeezing his hand. "We're a package deal now." During their last semester, Eric landed an internship at a marketing firm downtown. The position wasn't exactly what he wanted, but it was a foot in the door. He started spending more time at the office, often working late hours to impress his boss. It was at the internship that Eric met Amy Peterson. She was the daughter of the firm's vice president and worked part-time in the office while finishing her degree at a nearby private college. Amy had straight blonde hair, blue eyes, and a laugh that turned heads. She also had connections that Eric knew could help his career. At first, Eric and Amy were just friendly coworkers. She would bring him coffee when she made a run. He would save her a seat at staff meetings. But soon they started texting outside of work hours. Amy would send him funny memes or ask his opinion on work projects. Eric told himself it was just professional networking. Meanwhile, Natalie was excelling in her final classes and had started interviewing with tech companies. She was excited about the possibilities but noticed Eric seemed distant. "Is everything okay?" she asked one night while they studied in the library. "You've been checking your phone all evening." "Just work stuff," Eric said, turning his phone face down. "This internship is demanding." "I hardly see you anymore," Natalie said. "I miss you." "I miss you too," Eric replied, but part of him was thinking about the lunch he had planned with Amy the next day. As the weeks passed, Eric found himself making excuses to see less of Natalie. He canceled their regular Friday date nights, claiming to be tired from work. He stopped studying with her, saying he focused better alone. The truth was, he was spending more time with Amy. Amy understood the pressure Eric felt from his parents to succeed. Her father had connections at all the top firms in the city. When she talked about her family's vacation home or the private schools she attended, Eric imagined a life of comfort and connections that seemed far from his middle-class upbringing. "You should come to my parents' country club sometime," Amy suggested one afternoon as they sat in a cafe near the office. "Dad could introduce you to some important people." The idea was tempting. Eric thought about how hard he had worked to get where he was, how many nights he stayed up studying while his friends partied. Didn't he deserve a break? Didn't he deserve an easier path? One evening, Amy invited Eric to a dinner at her parents' house. The home was impressive, a large colonial with a circular driveway and perfectly maintained garden. Inside, the furniture looked expensive, and there were original paintings on the walls. Amy's parents were friendly and asked questions about Eric's career goals. "With your ambition and our connections, you could go far," Amy's father said, refilling Eric's wine glass. "We like to help promising young people." When Eric returned to his apartment that night, he found Natalie waiting for him. She had used her key to let herself in and had fallen asleep on his couch while waiting. A home-cooked meal sat cold on the table. "Hey," she said sleepily as he walked in. "Surprise. I thought we could have a nice dinner since we haven't seen much of each other lately." Guilt washed over Eric as he looked at Natalie's hopeful face. She had been nothing but supportive of him for the past 3 years. She believed in him when no one else did. But when he thought about his evening at Amy's house, the fancy food, the promises of connections and opportunities, he felt pulled in another direction. "That was thoughtful," he said, avoiding her eyes. "But I already ate at work." Natalie's smile faded. "Oh, well, we can still spend some time together, right?" "Actually, I'm really tired. Can we maybe do this another time?" The hurt in Natalie's eyes was clear, but she simply nodded, packed up the food, and left. As Eric closed the door behind her, he felt a strange mix of relief and shame. 2 days later, Amy kissed Eric after work. Instead of pulling away, he kissed her back. That night he lay awake thinking about Natalie and the 3 years they had shared. He thought about how her hand felt in his, how her eyes lit up when she talked about coding, how she always believed he could achieve anything. Then he thought about Amy, her family's connections, the easy path to success she represented. Eric made his decision. He would end things with Natalie. He told himself it wasn't about race. It was about fit, about the future, about practical considerations. Deep down, though, he knew his parents would be more comfortable with Amy at family gatherings. He knew Amy's world of country clubs and networking events felt more like the success he had always imagined. He asked Natalie to meet him at their favorite restaurant, planning to break the news in a public place where they would both have to stay calm. As he waited for her to arrive, Eric rehearsed his speech in his head, trying to find words that would hurt less. But he knew no matter what he said, he was about to change everything between them. Natalie arrived at the restaurant 10 minutes late, slightly out of breath. Eric had chosen a table in the back corner, away from other diners. He stood up when he saw her, noticing how beautiful she looked in her blue dress. For a brief moment, he questioned his decision. "Sorry I'm late," Natalie said, sliding into her seat. "My final interview with TechCore ran longer than expected, but Eric, I have amazing news." Eric forced a smile. He hadn't expected her to be in such a good mood. "What's the news?" Natalie's eyes shined with excitement. "They offered me the job. Full benefits, great salary, and the best part, it's right here in the city, so we don't have to do long distance after graduation." That's great," Eric said, his rehearsed speech suddenly stuck in his throat. "I know. I wanted to surprise you. I've been so worried about what would happen to us after graduation, but now we can both stay here. You can keep working at your internship and I'll be at TechCore." Natalie reached across the table for his hand. "Everything's falling into place." Eric pulled his hand back slowly. "Natalie, we need to talk." The smile on Natalie's face faded. "What's wrong?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, about us, about the future." Eric stared at the table, unable to meet her eyes. "I don't think we should be together anymore." Silence fell between them. Eric finally looked up to see Natalie staring at him, her expression a mixture of confusion and hurt. "Is this a joke?" she asked quietly. "No," Eric said. "I'm sorry, but I think it's for the best." "For the best?" Natalie repeated. "We've been together for 3 years, Eric. We just talked about our future last month. What changed?" Eric shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "People change. Feelings change." "That's not an explanation," Natalie said, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. "I deserve more than that." Eric took a deep breath. "I've met someone else." The words hung in the air between them. Natalie sat perfectly still, as if moving might shatter her completely. "Who?" she finally asked. "Her name is Amy. She works at my internship." Eric couldn't stop now. The words tumbled out. "We've been spending a lot of time together, and there's just this connection between us. I didn't plan for it to happen." "How long?" "What? How long have you been seeing her behind my back?" Natalie's voice was ice cold now. "It's not like that," Eric protested. "We haven't been dating exactly. We've just been spending time together, getting close. So you're leaving me for someone you're not even dating yet?" Natalie's laugh was bitter. "That makes me feel so much better." The waiter approached their table, smiling brightly. "Are you ready to order?" "We need more time," Eric said quickly. "Actually," Natalie said, "I won't be staying." The waiter backed away awkwardly. Eric reached for Natalie's hand again, but she pulled away. "Natalie, please. I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why did you?" Her eyes were dry, but her voice trembled slightly. "What does she have that I don't?" Eric hesitated. How could he explain that Amy represented a world he wanted to be part of, that her family connections could open doors for him, that his parents would approve of her in ways they never had with Natalie? "We're just different," he said finally. "Amy and we understand each other. We have similar backgrounds, similar goals." "Similar backgrounds," Natalie repeated slowly. "You mean she's white?" "That's not what I said," Eric protested, though they both knew it was part of the truth. "You didn't have to say it." Natalie stood up, gathering her purse. "I hope you and Amy have a wonderful life together, Eric. I hope those similar backgrounds bring you all the happiness you deserve." "Natalie, wait. For what? For you to come up with more excuses?" "I came here tonight to celebrate good news with the man I love, the man I thought loved me back. Instead, I find out he's been lying to me, sneaking around with someone else." Natalie's voice never rose, but her words cut deep. "You're a coward, Eric. You couldn't even be honest about why you're really doing this." Eric stood up too, aware that other diners were starting to notice their conversation. "That's not fair. I'm trying to be honest now." "No, you're trying to make yourself feel better. There's a difference." Natalie straightened her shoulders. "Goodbye, Eric. Don't call me. Don't text me. We're done." She walked away, her head held high. Not once did she look back. Eric sank into his chair, feeling both relieved and terrible. It was over. He had done what he came to do. So why did he feel so empty? 3 days later, Eric was having lunch with Amy in the office break room when his phone buzzed. It was a text from Natalie's roommate, Kelly. "You left some things at Natalie's apartment. She packed them in a box. You can pick them up from the front desk of her building tomorrow. Don't try to see her." Eric showed the message to Amy, who frowned. "She's having her roommate text you? That's a bit dramatic." "It's fine," Eric said. "It's better this way." Amy smiled and took his hand. "So, does this mean we're official now?" Eric hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Yeah, I guess it does." The next day, Eric picked up a small cardboard box from Natalie's apartment building. Inside were a few hoodies he had left at her place, some books he had loaned her, and a framed photo of them from their first vacation together. At the bottom of the box was the key he had given her to his apartment, wrapped in a small note that simply said, "Good luck with everything." Eric's chest tightened as he read the note. There was no anger, no bitterness in those 4 words, just a final goodbye. Weeks passed. Eric didn't see Natalie around campus, though he sometimes caught himself looking for her in the library or cafeteria. Graduation came and went. Eric's parents beamed with pride as he walked across the stage to receive his diploma. Later, they met Amy for the first time at the graduation party. "She's lovely," his mother whispered to him. "Such good manners." Eric smiled, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in his chest. Summer turned to fall. Eric accepted a full-time position at the marketing firm where he had interned. Amy's father made sure he was placed in a department with growth potential. Things were going exactly as planned. But at night, alone in his new apartment, Eric sometimes found himself thinking about Natalie. He wondered how she was doing at her new job. He wondered if she thought about him too. One evening, 6 months after their breakup, Eric was working late when Amy stopped by his desk. "Daddy's hosting a dinner for some tech executives tomorrow night," she said. "He wants you to come. It could be good for your career." "Which tech companies?" Eric asked, thinking about networking opportunities. "Oh, the usual suspects. Microsoft, Apple, and that new one. TechCore, I think. They're making waves in the industry." Eric froze. "TechCore? Are you sure?" "Pretty sure." "Why? Do you know someone there?" Eric thought about Natalie, about her excitement when she told him about the job offer. "No," he lied. "Just curious." That night he couldn't sleep. The thought of possibly seeing Natalie again after all this time made his stomach knot with anxiety. What would he say to her? What would she think of him now? In the morning, Eric called Amy. "I don't think I can make it to dinner tonight. I'm not feeling well." "But Daddy specifically mentioned you." Amy pouted. These connections could be important. Eric thought about his career, about the doors that could open from one dinner. "Fine," he said finally. "I'll be there." He spent extra time getting ready, that evening choosing his best suit and tie. As he looked in the mirror, he wondered who he was trying to impress. The executives, Amy's father, or the ghost of a relationship he had walked away from. Eric arrived at the Peterson home just as the sun was setting. Cars lined the circular driveway, expensive cars that belonged to important people. Eric straightened his tie one last time before ringing the doorbell. Amy answered, looking beautiful in a black cocktail dress. "There you are," she said, kissing his cheek. "Everyone's in the living room." Eric followed her inside, his eyes scanning the crowd for a familiar face. His heart was racing, though he couldn't decide if he wanted to see Natalie or avoid her completely. And then he saw her. But it wasn't Natalie. The woman Eric spotted across the room merely had a similar hairstyle. He felt both relieved and disappointed as he followed Amy deeper into the crowded living room. "Eric, come meet Mr. Phillips," Amy said, guiding him toward an older man in an expensive suit. "He runs the East Coast division of Global Tech." The evening passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. Eric smiled, shook hands, and tried to remember names. Amy stayed by his side, proudly introducing him to everyone as "my boyfriend, the rising star at Patterson Marketing." Each time she said it, Eric felt a small glow of satisfaction. This was why he had made his choice. This world of connections and opportunities was what he had wanted. 3 hours later, as they said goodbye to the last guests, Amy's father clapped Eric on the shoulder. "You made quite an impression on Phillips. He mentioned they might have an opening in their marketing department soon." "Thank you, sir," Eric said. "I appreciate the introduction." "That's what family connections are for," Mr. Peterson said with a wink. On the drive home, Eric couldn't stop thinking about those words. Family connections. After 8 months of dating Amy, he was becoming part of the Peterson network. Doors were opening. His future looked bright. But something felt missing. The next morning, Eric received an email from Global Tech about a possible interview. The salary mentioned was nearly twice what he currently made. He immediately called Amy to share the news. "Daddy works fast," she laughed. "Are you going to take it?" "I haven't even interviewed yet," Eric reminded her. "Please, it's just a formality." The job is yours if you want it. Eric frowned slightly. I'd like to think they're interested in my skills and experience. Of course they are, Amy said quickly. But it never hurts to have friends in high places. Eric got the job offer the following week. After what felt like the easiest interview of his life, the interviewer had spent more time talking about golf with Mr. Peterson than asking Eric about his qualifications. He accepted the position and gave notice at the marketing firm. His co-workers threw him a small going-away party on his last day. As Eric packed up his desk, his supervisor stopped by. "You're moving up fast," she observed. "Must be nice having connections." "I worked hard to get here," Eric said defensively. His supervisor just smiled. "Sure you did." The comment bothered Eric more than it should have. Did everyone think he was just riding on the Peterson name? Did they believe he hadn't earned his success? Eric's first few months at Global Tech were challenging but exciting. The work was more demanding than his previous job, and for the first time since college, he felt truly tested. He stayed late most evenings, determined to prove he deserved this opportunity. Amy wasn't happy about his long hours. "Daddy didn't get you this job so you could ignore me," she complained one night when he canceled their dinner plans. "I need to establish myself," Eric explained. "I can't just coast on your father's recommendation." "Why not? Everyone else does." Their relationship began to show cracks. Eric realized that Amy expected life to be easy, a series of doors opened by her family's influence. But he had grown up watching his parents work hard for everything they had. Despite taking advantage of the Peterson connections, part of him still believed in earning his way. By their one-year anniversary, Eric and Amy were arguing more than talking. She wanted him to join her at social events. He wanted to focus on work. She talked about moving in together. He made excuses about bad timing. The breaking point came during a dinner with her parents. "When are you two going to make things official?" Mrs. Peterson asked, eyeing Amy's bare ring finger. Amy looked expectantly at Eric, who nearly choked on his wine. "We haven't really discussed it," he said carefully. "Well, you're not getting any younger," Mr. Peterson said to his daughter. "And Eric here is becoming quite the catch now that he's at Global Tech." Later that night, Amy confronted him in his apartment. "Why did you look so horrified when Mom mentioned marriage? We've been together for over a year." "I'm just not ready," Eric admitted. "My career is just taking off and I want to establish myself before thinking about marriage." "Establish yourself?" Amy laughed. "Eric, you're already established. My father made sure of that." "That's the problem," Eric said, the words escaping before he could stop them. "I don't want everything handed to me. I want to know I earned it." Amy stared at him. "Is that what you think? That everything was handed to you? Wasn't it? The job interview was a joke. They hired me because of your dad. So what? That's how the world works. People help each other." "But I haven't earned it," Eric insisted. "Don't you understand? I want to succeed on my own merits." Amy's expression hardened. "You didn't seem to mind using our connections when it benefited you. Now suddenly you have principles?" The argument escalated until Amy stormed out, slamming the door behind her. They didn't speak for 3 days. When she finally called, her voice was cold. "Daddy says Global Tech is restructuring. Your department might be affected." Eric felt a chill. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm giving you a friendly warning. Connections work both ways, Eric. They can open doors or close them." 2 weeks later, Eric was called into his manager's office and informed that his position was being eliminated due to departmental restructuring. He was given 2 weeks severance pay and asked to clear out his desk by the end of the day. Shul didn't call Amy. Instead, he went home and stared at his apartment ceiling, wondering how things had gone so wrong. He had left Natalie for a world of privilege and connections, only to discover it came with strings attached. The next morning, Eric updated his resume and began applying for jobs. He was determined to find a position on his own merits this time. No connections, no shortcuts, just his skills and experience. The job search was harder than he expected. Without the Peterson name opening doors, Eric faced rejection after rejection. His savings dwindled as weeks turned into months. He took on freelance projects to pay rent, but the future looked uncertain. On a cold Tuesday morning, Eric received an email from a company called Apex Technologies about a project management position he had applied for. They wanted him to come in for an interview the following day. The company name wasn't familiar, but the job description matched his skills perfectly. Eric prepared carefully for the interview, researching the company and practicing his responses to common questions. Apex Technologies was a rising star in the tech industry, known for innovative software solutions. The position would be a step up from his role at Global Tech, with more responsibility and better pay. The Apex offices impressed Eric as soon as he walked through the door. The space was modern and open, with glass walls and collaborative workspaces. The receptionist greeted him warmly and directed him to a waiting area. After a few minutes, a young woman approached him. "Mr. Jordan, I'm Lisa from HR. We'll be starting with a team interview, followed by a meeting with the department director if all goes well." The team interview went smoothly. Eric answered questions honestly, admitting his failures at Global Tech and what he had learned from them. The panel seemed impressed by his candor and his ideas for improving project workflows. "We'll take a short break, and then if you're still a good fit, you'll meet with our director," Lisa explained afterward. Eric waited nervously in a small conference room. This was the furthest he had gotten in an interview process in months. He needed this job, not just for the paycheck, but to prove to himself that he could succeed without connections. The door opened and Lisa returned. "Good news. The team was impressed. The director would like to meet you now." Eric followed her down a hallway toward a corner office with glass walls. As they approached, he could see someone sitting at the desk, reviewing documents. Lisa knocked on the door frame. "Ms. Washington, your 2 o'clock is here." Eric's heart stopped. Ms. Washington. It couldn't be. The person at the desk looked up and Eric found himself staring into Natalie's familiar brown eyes. She showed no surprise, no reaction at all, as if she had been expecting him. "Thank you, Lisa," Natalie said calmly. "Please come in, Mr. Jordan, have a seat." Eric's legs felt weak as he walked into Natalie's office. She looked different now, more polished, more confident. Her hair was styled in a professional bob, and she wore a tailored navy suit that screamed success. The shy college girl he once knew had transformed into someone powerful. "Please sit down," Natalie said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Her voice was calm and professional, betraying no emotion. Eric sat down, his mouth suddenly dry. "Natalie, Ms. Washington, please," she corrected him gently. "We should keep things professional." "Right. Ms. Washington." Eric struggled to find words. "I didn't know you worked here." "I'm the director of project management," Natalie said, looking down at his resume on her desk. "I've been with Apex for almost 2 years now." Eric's mind raced. 2 years. That meant she had moved from TechCore to Apex, climbing the corporate ladder while he had been riding on Amy's connections. "Your resume is quite interesting, Mr. Jordan," Natalie continued as if they were complete strangers. "You've had some ups and downs in your career." "Yes," Eric admitted. "I've learned some hard lessons along the way." Natalie nodded, her expression unreadable. "Tell me why you want to work at Apex." For a moment, Eric considered lying, saying something about company, culture, or growth opportunities. But sitting across from Natalie, he couldn't bring himself to be anything but honest. "I need a fresh start," he said. "I made mistakes in my last position. I relied on connections rather than my own abilities, and it backfired. I want to work somewhere where I can prove myself based on merit, not who I know." Something flickered in Natalie's eyes, surprise perhaps at his honesty. She leaned back in her chair, studying him. "The team speaks highly of your interview," she said. "They were impressed with your ideas for streamlining our project workflows." "Thank you, but I have concerns." Natalie tapped her pen against his resume. "Your time at Global Tech ended abruptly. Your reference there wasn't particularly glowing." Eric winced. He had listed his direct supervisor, not knowing if she would speak well of him after the way things ended. "My departure from Global Tech was complicated," he admitted. "I was dating the daughter of a board member. When the relationship ended, So did my job. I see. Natalie's expression remained neutral. And why should I believe that won't happen? Here? That personal issues won't affect your professional performance? Eric met her gaze directly. Because I've learned from my mistakes. I understand now that true success comes from hard work and integrity, not from taking shortcuts. Natalie was silent for a long moment, considering his words. Eric waited, his heart pounding. He had never wanted a job more in his life. Not just for the paycheck, but for the chance to prove himself. To show Natalie that he had changed. The position requires someone who can handle pressure, Natalie said finally. Someone who won't crumble when things get difficult. I'm stronger than I used to be, Eric said. The past year hasn't been easy, but it taught me resilience. Natalie nodded slowly. We have one more candidate to interview tomorrow. We'll make our decision by the end of the week. She stood up, signaling the end of the interview. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Jordan. Eric stood as well, knowing this might be his only chance. Natalie, Ms. Washington, I know this is awkward. Our history makes this complicated, but I want you to know that I would never let that affect my work. If anything, it would make me work harder to prove myself. Natalie's professional mask slipped just slightly. This isn't about our history, Eric. This is about finding the right person for the job. I understand, Eric said, feeling the opportunity slipping away. Thank you for your time. As Eric walked out of the office building, a mix of emotions washed over him. Seeing Natalie again had brought back memories he had tried to forget. The way he had ended things, the hurt in her eyes that last night at the restaurant, the life they might have had together if he hadn't been so foolish. He spent the next 3 days checking his phone constantly, jumping every time it rang. When Friday afternoon came with no news, Eric assumed the worst. They had hired the other candidate. Natalie had chosen someone else. Then, at 4:45 p.m., his phone rang with an unknown number. Hello, is this Eric Jordan? A woman's voice asked. Yes, speaking. This is Lisa from Apex Technologies HR. I'm calling to offer you the project manager position. Eric almost dropped his phone. Really? Thank you. Ms. Washington was impressed with your honesty, Lisa continued. She believes you have potential. Can you start on Monday? Absolutely, Eric said, unable to contain his excitement. I'll be there. After hanging up, Eric sat in stunned silence. Natalie had hired him. Despite their history, despite everything, she had given him a chance. He felt a strange mix of gratitude and shame. He didn't deserve her generosity, but he would work every day to earn it. Monday morning arrived with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Eric arrived early, dressed in his best suit. Lisa greeted him in the lobby and spent the morning helping him with paperwork and introductions. By lunchtime, his head was spinning with new names and information. Ms. Washington would like to see you in her office at 2 p.m., Lisa told him as she showed him to his new desk. She likes to personally welcome new team members. At exactly 2 p.m., Eric knocked on Natalie's office door. Come in, she called. Eric entered, standing a bit straighter than usual. You wanted to see me, Ms. Washington? Yes, please sit down. Natalie was reviewing documents on her tablet. She looked up and met his eyes. I want to set clear expectations from the start. Of course, you were hired because you were the most qualified candidate, she said firmly. Not because of our past, not despite our past. Your skills and experience matched what we need. Eric nodded. I understand. That said, Natalie continued, I expect more from you than I might from others. I've put my professional reputation on the line by hiring you. Don't make me regret it. I won't, Eric promised. I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I'll work harder than anyone else here. Natalie studied him for a moment. We have a major client project launching next week. I'm putting you on the team. It's a chance to prove yourself early. Thank you, Eric said. I won't let you down. I hope not. Natalie's voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, I believe people can change. I've seen it happen. As Eric left her office, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. She didn't hate him. She didn't trust him yet, but she was giving him a chance. That was more than he deserved. The next few weeks were the most challenging of Eric's professional life. The client project was complex and demanding, with tight deadlines and high expectations. Eric threw himself into the work, arriving early and staying late. He volunteered for the most difficult tasks and never complained about the workload. His team members noticed. "You're making the rest of us look bad," joked Steve, another project manager, as they worked late one evening. "Just trying to prove myself," Eric said. "To who? The client?" "To myself," Eric replied, but they both knew it wasn't the whole truth. 1 month into the job, Eric was presenting the project status to the client when a technical issue arose. The demo they had planned failed to work properly. The client representatives frowned, and Eric felt panic rising in his chest. Then Natalie stepped in. "What Mr. Jordan is trying to demonstrate is our new user interface," she said smoothly, pulling up backup slides that Eric hadn't even known existed. "While our technical team resolves the demo issue, perhaps we could discuss the design philosophy behind the changes." She saved the presentation, guiding the conversation so skillfully that by the time the demo was fixed, the clients were already sold on the concept. After the meeting, Eric approached her. "Thank you for stepping in. You saved me in there." "I didn't save you," Natalie corrected him. "I saved the project. There's a difference." "Still, I appreciate it." Natalie looked at him for a long moment. "You've been working hard, Eric. The team has noticed. I've noticed. It's important to me," Eric said. "This job, doing it right." "Why?" Natalie asked. It was the first personal question she had asked since he started. Eric considered his answer carefully. "Because I want to be the kind of person who deserves success, not someone who takes shortcuts. I learned that lesson the hard way." Something in Natalie's expression changed, a softening around the eyes perhaps. "We have a team dinner tomorrow. Night to celebrate the project milestone. You should come." "Are you sure?" Eric asked, surprised by the invitation. "You're part of the team," Natalie said simply. "You've earned your place here." As Eric watched her walk away, he realized how much he had lost when he chose Amy over Natalie years ago. Not just a relationship, but a chance to grow alongside someone who valued hard work and integrity. Someone who saw his potential even when he couldn't see it himself. For the first time since starting at Apex, Eric felt like he might truly belong there. Not because of connections or privilege, but because he had earned it. One day at a time, one project at a time, he was rebuilding himself into someone he could be proud of. And maybe, just maybe, someone Natalie could respect again. The team dinner was held at an upscale restaurant downtown. Eric arrived 15 minutes early, nervously adjusting his tie in the restaurant's window reflection before going inside. Most of the team was already there, gathered around a large table in the private dining area. "Eric, over here," called Steve, waving him over. "We saved you a seat." Eric smiled and joined the group, surprised by how welcome he felt. After 6 weeks at Apex, he had begun to build genuine relationships with his colleagues based on mutual respect, rather than what they could do for each other. Natalie arrived last, dressed in a simple black dress that made her look less like their boss and more like someone they might actually be friends with. She took the last empty chair, which happened to be across from Eric. "Sorry I'm late," she said to the group. "Client call ran long." "We haven't ordered yet," Steve assured her. "Just drinks." As the evening progressed, Eric watched Natalie interact with the team. She knew details about everyone's lives. Lisa's daughter had just started kindergarten, Dev was training for a marathon, Marcus had recently adopted a rescue dog. She asked thoughtful questions and listened carefully to the answers. This was a side of Natalie that Eric rarely saw in the office, where she maintained a more professional distance. When the conversation turned to Eric, he found himself sharing stories about his childhood and college years. He carefully avoided mentioning the time when he and Natalie had dated, but he couldn't help noticing the way she watched him as he spoke, her expression thoughtful. After dinner, as the group began to disperse, Eric found himself walking out, alongside Natalie. "Thank you for including me tonight," he said as they reached the sidewalk. "It meant a lot." "You're part of the team now," Natalie said simply. "You've proven that over the past few weeks." A light rain had started to fall. Eric noticed Natalie didn't have an umbrella. "Can I walk you to your car?" he offered, opening his umbrella and holding it over both of them. Natalie hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Thanks. I'm in the garage 2 blocks down." They walked in silence for a minute, close together under the umbrella. The situation felt strangely familiar. A rainy night, the two of them sharing an umbrella. It reminded Eric of their first meeting, years ago. "This feels like déjà vu," Natalie said quietly as if reading his thoughts. "I was just thinking the same thing," Eric admitted. "Except the roles are reversed. You had the umbrella that first day we met." Natalie glanced at him surprised. "You remember that?" "Of course I do." Eric kept his eyes on the wet sidewalk ahead. "I remember a lot of things I probably don't deserve to remember." They reached the parking garage entrance. Natalie stepped out from under the umbrella but didn't immediately go inside. "Eric," she said, her professional mask slipping just a bit. "I need to know something." "Anything," he said. "Why did you apply to Apex? Did you know I worked here?" Eric shook his head. "No, I had no idea. I applied to dozens of companies. Apex just happened to be one of them." "So seeing me in that interview was a complete surprise?" "Total shock," Eric confirmed. "I almost fell out of my chair." A small smile played at the corners of Natalie's mouth. "I could tell. Your face gave you away." "I was sure you were going to throw me out of your office," Eric said. "I considered it," Natalie admitted. "But it wouldn't have been professional." They stood looking at each other in the soft rain. Eric wanted to say more, to apologize again for the past, to tell her how much he respected the person she had become. But the moment didn't feel right. They were still boss and employee, with years of complicated history between them. "Good night." "Eric," Natalie said finally, turning toward the garage entrance. "Good night, Ms. Washington," he replied, watching her walk away. The next few months brought new projects and challenges. Eric continued to work hard, gradually earning the trust of his colleagues and supervisors. Natalie remained professional, but fair, treating him no differently than any other team member. Then came the Anderson project, a major client with a nearly impossible deadline. The entire team worked overtime for weeks, sometimes staying at the office until midnight. Eric took on the most difficult aspects of the project, determined to see it succeed. 3 days before the deadline, disaster struck. A key component of their software failed during testing. The team gathered in the conference room, faces grim as they assessed the damage. "We need to start over with this module," Dev said, pointing to the error logs on the screen. "It could take a week, minimum." "We don't have a week," Lisa reminded him. "The client presentation is on Friday." "Then we need to push back the presentation," Marcus suggested. "Anderson won't agree to that," Natalie said, rubbing her temples. "They've already scheduled their board to review our work on Friday afternoon." The room fell silent as the team faced the impossible situation. Then Eric spoke up. "I think I can fix it," he said quietly. All eyes turned to him. "The core issue is in the authentication system," Eric continued, moving to the whiteboard. "If we rebuild just that component rather than the entire module, we might be able to make the deadline." "That's still 3 days of work," Dev objected. "Not if I work through the nights," Eric said. "I can do this. I know I can." Natalie studied him for a long moment. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." "All right," she decided. "Eric will take point on the fix. The rest of you continue with your assigned tasks and be ready to support if needed." For the next 3 days, Eric barely left the office. He worked through 2 nights straight, catching brief naps on the office couch when his eyes couldn't focus anymore. By the morning of the presentation, he was exhausted but triumphant. The authentication system worked perfectly. The team gathered in the large conference room, waiting nervously for the Anderson executives to arrive. Natalie moved among them, checking last-minute details and offering words of encouragement. Pedidos. She reached Eric. She paused. You look terrible, she said bluntly. Thanks, Eric said with a tired smile. Just what I needed to hear. But you did it, Natalie continued, her voice softer. You saved the project. We all did, Eric corrected her. It was a team effort. Natalie looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You've changed, Eric. Before he could respond, the receptionist announced the arrival of the Anderson team. The next 2 hours were a blur of presentations, demonstrations, and questions. To everyone's relief, the system performed flawlessly. The Anderson executives left with smiles and handshakes all around. As the team celebrated their success, Natalie called for attention. Everyone did exceptional work on this project, she said. But I want to particularly recognize Eric's contribution. Without his dedication and technical skill, we wouldn't be celebrating right now. The team applauded, and Eric felt a warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with pride in his work. It was the feeling of belonging, of being valued for who he was and what he could contribute. Later that evening, as the office emptied, Eric remained at his desk, too tired to move. He didn't notice Natalie approaching until she spoke. You should. Go home and sleep, she said. You've earned it. Eric looked up at her with weary eyes. I will. Just need to finish this one thing. Natalie shook her head in exasperation. Always one more thing with you. She sat down in the chair beside his desk. Eric, we need to talk. Something in her tone made him focus. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Natalie said. But I've been offered a promotion to Vice President of Operations. If I accept, I'll be moving to a different division. That's amazing, Eric said sincerely. Congratulations. Thank you, but it means I wouldn't be your direct supervisor anymore. Eric nodded slowly, beginning to understand. I see. Do you? Natalie asked, meeting his eyes directly. I think so, Eric said carefully. It would change our professional relationship. Yes, it would. Natalie took a deep breath. Eric, these past few months working with you have been complicated, but I've seen who you've become. The way you work, the way you treat people, the way you own up to your mistakes and learn from them. I had a good example to follow, Eric said quietly. Natalie smiled, a real warm smile that reminded Eric of the girl he had met in college. I'm having dinner tomorrow night at Lorenzo's, 7 p.m. if you'd like to join me, as equals this time. Eric's heart raced. I'd like that very much. Good. Natalie stood up. Now go home before you fall asleep at your desk. As Eric drove home, that night, he thought about how much had changed in the past few years. He had lost his way, chasing status and connections instead of building something real. He had hurt someone who had only ever supported him. But somehow, against all odds, he had been given a second chance. Tomorrow night he would meet Natalie as equals, not as boss and employee, not as college sweethearts, but as two people who had grown and changed and perhaps found their way back to each other. Eric didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time he felt worthy of whatever might come next. He had earned his place at Apex through hard work and integrity. And maybe, just maybe, he had earned a place in Natalie's life again too, not through privilege or connections, but by becoming someone better than the boy who had once let her go.